Well, hello to anybody that may or may not be watching. Um, Look, I thought I'd just do a live. I've not done a live for a while, and things are getting a little bit heated. Forgive the phrase, around the streets of the UK right now. Um, so there was a kick-off in Hare Hills a few weeks ago regarding a baby of a Romanian family that had fallen out of a window. The family didn't fall out of the window; the baby did, or a young child did. And when the police and social services were called, they took away the kid, and there was riots of the Romanian community, kicking off, setting fire to things, turning police cars upside down, etc., etc. And then, tragically, some idiot moron prick decided to go into a dance class and shoot people, shoot kids. No, not shoot, stab kids. Which was just that's just horrific. So the people of Stockport decided to hold a vigil, but that turned into a riot. Now, the most recent one is there's riots everywhere happening. Basically, I think that the Hare Hills is the catalyst for the civil uprising that's been happening or been waiting to happen since COVID. The conspiracy crazies, they did say there will be a civil unrest, but they were more tying that into COVID. I always thought there was going to be a civil unrest, and it's happening now. The problem you've got is the message gets totally lost and watered down. So yesterday in Hull, there was a protest, which I think it looked peaceful to begin with, outside the Royal Hotel, where the police were in riot gear, basically calling off the hotel, and people were just throwing bricks and stones at the police. And it's to do with the immigration, it's to do with the migrants that are being housed in these hotels. And do you know what? Whoever protested for that, I'm 100% behind them. Whoever's protesting for that to hashtag send them back, I'm 100% for that, because, they need to be sent back. He's not had a good first couple of weeks, has he, Mr. Starmer? He's cancelled the winter payments for pensioners. He has cancelled the Rwanda deal. He's allowing the Bibi Stockholm deal to come to an end without renewing it, which means that anybody that's living in Bibi Stockholm, the barge place, will have to be housed somewhere. So he's not having a great first couple of weeks as Prime Minister. Basically, I knew that taxes would rise during with Labour in, and they'd want to get people back into work, and benefits will soon be hit as well. You've been made to go to work even if you can't. So yeah, Mrs. Starmer's not had the best few weeks, but the thing with the whole, and this is where it gets clouded, and this is what's a bit of a shame and a bit of a shambles. Keir Starmer's labelling these writers as yobs, mobs, whatever else he's called them, brainless, etc., etc. He's basically branded them as just mob mentality, really. The far left or the far right, I never understand that. Far leftism or far rightism is just basically mob mentality. Now, with the protests for the immigration, that wasn't a mob mentality. From what I saw from yesterday's videos, it wasn't a mob mentality around the hotel. They had a point. They had an agenda, and they had a purpose there. And it was basically hashtag send them back. Send these immigrants, send these asylum seekers, send them all home, to where they belong, to where, you know, they've come here illegally, they're being fed, they're being watered, they're being housed, 8 million a day at the last count, to the UK taxpayer. But that doesn't matter to Mr. Starmer because, you know, he's now got his little bunker in case World War III kicks off, and he won't step down just yet. No matter how much, you know, you throw at him, he's not going to step down just yet. He's going to milk this for all he can. He's just had his bathroom decorated or whatever. So he's not going to leave Parliament just yet. Now, the thing is they had this purpose. They had this goal. They had a vision. They were blinkered in this vision of send them all back. Don't want them here. Get them out of the hotels. Da 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 da. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You know, whoever organised that, I've got a funny feeling I know who might have been or who was involved, but whoever organised that, yes, totally 100% agree. I agree with all the protests that happen across the UK regarding these asylum seekers, and it's just taken time. Like, if I go back to Hare Hills basically just, people looked at that and just said, we can do this. We can rise above it. And that's what they have done. They've just taken Hare Hills as like a catalyst, even though it had nothing to do with what they want to protest about. But when you've got this vision, you've got to stick with the vision. Those people were protesting for get them out of the hotels, send them back, sort their wander out, da da da. But then it went a little bit tits up. It went a little bit Pete-tong. It went a little bit pear-shaped. Because then they started the mob mentality. Falling right into the trap of how they've been branded, how they've been labelled in the media. There'll be no antisocial behaviour on the streets, apparently, according to the Home Secretary. We will not tolerate antisocial behaviour. Okay, well, hang on a second. There's antisocial behaviour all around, and it gets away with. I was driving, just going off subject a little bit. I was driving towards my home the other day, and this kid on a push bike or a little electric bike or whatever was wheeling in front of me. Why did you don't buy unicycles? I don't know, but he was wheeling in front of me, so I honked my horn. I passed him, started wheeling again. The police car drove past. A police car just drove past, did nothing. This kid was riding his motor, whatever, radically, with zero thought about road use. So that's antisocial behaviour in my eyes. Going up and down the streets, I get it all the time. Every single day in this street, there's always somebody up and down the street on a stupid little electric scooter, bike, whatever, doing wheelies and going up and down the path and X, Y, Z. So I get it all. We get it all the time, but yet that's antisocial behaviour. But yet it won't be tolerated. Well, hang on a minute. Why was some kid in Stockport allowed to walk into a kid's, I'll call it a playgroup, and murder 3 babies, basically? Why was that allowed? Why was the antisocial behaviour allowed in Hare Hills? You're falling right into the trap of mob mentality. Again, they had a vision. Send them back. The vision was broken when they started to throw bins everywhere, set fire to bins, attack the police with whatever they could, set fire to shops and start looting shops. I mean, come on. They looted Greggs. For what? I mean, the food probably gets thrown out at the end of the day anyway. I mean, he's that desperate for a sausage roll. They were looting and set fire to Shoe Zone. What were they stealing from Shoe Zone? Crocs. No, yeah, I don't get it. You know, they've basically trashed Hull City Centre. people today have been out helping to clean up, which then brings me to my next question: How did the people know about the cleanup today? Did they just turn up and thought, "Oh, what's that cleaning up?" They looked like they were organised to clean up. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. So yeah, the mob mentality is what has ruined and has now diluted to the point of no probable comeback now of getting asylum seekers out of these hotels. The message has gone from send them back to we're a bunch of dickheads. We're a bunch of idiots. When you're protesting, you must keep the vision there. You can't, I mean, I've always sort of said that, since I left the radicals, that protests don't really do anything. Nobody listens to them. Nobody really pays attention to protests anymore. It's just basically a group of people walking around the streets, but now it's getting ridiculous. People get injured. And the other thing is, if you're in this protest crowd, and this is what's another scary thing with the knife crime on the street, if you're in the protest crowd and you just have it in you and think, do you know what, I want to stab somebody today, you could do it and get away with it. Nobody would know. Nobody would see you. You can cause a crime of murder, potential murder, and nobody would bat an eyelid. They wouldn't know. You could be just in the crowd, shank somebody, twist the knife in, and nobody would know. That's scary. Even scarier is that there was kids there. People were taking the kids there. What sort of example are you setting for these kids, man? You're saying, oh yeah, this is right. The first part, yes, 100%, bang on, right. Send them back. I'm for that. Totally for that. And the protesters that were there to do that, I'm 100% behind you. 100%, I'll voice it totally, absolutely. I'll shake your hand for doing it. Pat you on the back for doing it. But then comes the second part of mob rule. And that's where your message has now been lost. Because you've allowed little dickheads in little balaclavas, mate, and the fucking hoods up, or whoever's throwing stuff and trash and stuff, thinking it's funny. You've ruined people's livelihoods. Why was it Greg's fault that that it turned into that? Why was it Shoezone's fault that it turned into that? Why have these businesses been had to pay a price? Because now the rebuild is probably going to come at a cost. You want to go to Shoezone and buy some shoes, I bet the price is going to go up. You want to go to Greg's, I bet you have to pay more than £2 for a sausage roll. There was other shops as well, and then it extended further on. And then there was cars being smashed up. It's like, well, why is it their fault? Why are you taking out on the cars that you can't control yourself? There was no self-control there yesterday. Probably was the beginning. Oh, look, she's there. I'll send you on the blind down, Bob. Yeah, well, you can always come in and close it if you want. Do you want to close it? You can close it. It's just the lights bouncing off the head anyways. There she goes. There she goes. So yeah, the mob mentality has totally diluted, ruined, obliterated any action you wanted to happen, because now you are mindless thugs that Keir Starmer's labelled you as. You are now antisocial. You are now probably enemies of the state, so if you're going to protest, my advice to you is don't let it get out of hand. Keep things in control. As in, we're there for one reason. anybody who starts kicking off or anybody who starts to take this away from, all right, yeah, throw your bottles, throw whatever you need to do, shout, scream, but keep it on topic. Keep it on topic of your message, because now your message has been fucked. It's gone. You've diluted it. You've blown it out of the water. It's no longer relevant. You are now labelled as a mob, and you allowed lunacy and lack of self-control to take over. And it's not the police's fault. You can't take it out on the police that are there to protect. All right, they're there to protect the asylum seekers, but it's not the police's fault. They were just doing their jobs. The fault is of the government. The fault is of the supposed leader of our shitty little country. Multi-country. That most of the people in Britain voted in. Now, you've got a couple of different steps that can be taken. We can have Keir Starmer step down. But then, who's next? It's always better the devil you know. Always better the devil you know. And I said this back when Boris was in charge. But you know, we're going to get Rishi Sunak, he's better than Boris Johnson. Yeah, but look at what he's done. You know, we need to close the borders. Now, I do think, and I do believe, that had the votes have been there, Mr. Farage, like him or hate him, but he was one of the first people when this asylum plan of housing them in the hotels. He used to go around, obviously with chauffeur driven, he didn't go around on his moped, but he would go around and he would question it. So he wants the borders to be controlled. We hear, and this is the thing with Starmer, is he would take the piss out of Sunak in Parliament for not having control over the borders. He would take the piss out of Sunak for no deportation as yet. The plan was, in July we fly. That was their mantra. They were supposed to fly a couple of hundred to Rwanda. Not happened. Starmer's cancelled it. So how can you stand there, Mr. Starmer, take the piss out of the ex-Prime Minister, who was current Prime Minister, and slag him off for not deporting anybody when you're not deporting anybody? You've given us false promises. That's a false promise. And that's how these people get into state. Because they feed you with bullshit. And then when they've not adhered to what you want them to do within a few weeks, I mean, let's give the guy a break, right? Don't like him, but let's give him a break. He's been there a few weeks. You can't change the world in a few weeks. You can't change things within a few weeks. It's going to take months, possibly even years. Think about it. If it's costing £8 million per day to the British taxpayer to house these people, 8 million per day. How many are over here? We don't have the transportation to say send them all home now. We can't do that in the blink of an eye. It's going to take time. I've also heard that there's talk of bringing the military in. Now that would mean martial law, which ain't a bad thing. However, do we have the resources to do that? Probably not. Not when there's been threats of, not when Russia's not happy with us. We're gonna bring our military in to police the streets. So that then weakens our, military defences, because we've got the military doing the police's job. And again, it's the police's job. They are doing their job. They are doing what they are told to do. They might not like what they're doing, but they are doing what they are told to do. It's their job. It'd be like you or I or anybody else on the planet going to work and saying to your boss, no, what's going to happen then? Okay, you lose your job. You can't provide for your family. You can't pay your bills. So you lose your job. So when somebody says it's the police just doing the job, you can't compare it to 1945. You can't compare it to World War II, because the Germans were just doing their job. But if they didn't do their job, they were shot. They were gone. Whereas if these guys don't do the job, all right, it's not exactly Nazi Germany, but, you know, they can't pay the bills, they get fired. So would you tell your boss, nah, fuck off, not doing it? Doubt it. And I would say the majority of the people that can't stand the government, that slag off the government, are probably taken from the government in some way or form. You can talk about, okay, well, let's get rid of government. Let's get rid of government. Let's get rid of the monarchy. Let's have Joe Bloggs, he's the best protester in the world. You know, the king protester, the leader of all protests. He's made up, by the way. Let's have him lead the country. Okay. What do you think he then becomes? He would have to form a government. You can't run without some government and some rules in place. I know, Dougie. I'm glad you agree. Dougie agrees. He's not the brightest tool in the shed, but he agrees. Yeah, no, lay down then. Enough. So you would have to form some kind of government and leadership. But then you can't do all that from Parliament. You can't do all that from your house in London. You then have to have, let's say, soldiers, whatever, which are your local MPs. Your local MPs, your district MPs. It goes up the ladder. So your local MPs, you've got your district MPs, you've got your heads of state MPs, and then you've got your Prime Minister MPs. So you would still have to form a government. You still have to form a hierarchy. You would still have to form rules and regulations. So you can't say down with the government, because there's always been one. There's always been a vote. There's always been somebody leading. There's always been somebody in charge. Now I know these people can't lead a piss up in a brewery, but let's just, I would say give him a few more weeks before we start to say, let's have a vote and vote him out. Everyone's just freaking voted. But then you got Farage, and bring Farage in. I would say give him a crack at the whip. He'd probably have Katie Hopkins as his second in command. That'll be a good duo, that Farage and Hopkins. But yeah, so look, the message is lost. It's gone. If you're going to protest, keep it on topic. You've just ruined people's livelihoods. You've ruined the streets. You've made it so that it feels unsafe to people to actually go into town centre. To a town centre, because it's happening all over the place. There's Rotherham, there's Manchester, Bolton. All over the place, these are happening. And I think the catalyst was from Aerials, and it just basically said, oh yeah, we can do this. We can overthrow the police. We can overthrow, we can turn police cars over and set fire to things. And you do know this is where you live, don't you? We talk about the immigrants coming over and the asylum seekers coming over and making this place like it's where they used to live. All right, like the streets of Baghdad or wherever, with the tipping shit everywhere and not having any respect for the streets or any respect for anybody else. What are you rioters actually doing? You are now becoming the thing that you despise. You're becoming the person that you're against. You're trashing your own streets. You're trashing private property. You're trashing something that somebody's had to work for. Is that not what you're against? You're making it into the streets of Baghdad. You're turning this to Iraq. You're turning this into Afghanistan. They aren't. They're not going around starting fires. They're not going around throwing things at the police. Not in a mob rule anyway. But how do you think these countries end up like this? How do you think, you see them on TV, desolate streets, houses blown up, and, you've got a line of houses where one person lives in those houses because they don't want to leave. You've got cars on fire, you've got, streets that are vandalised. How do you think they get that way? By the very people that live there. We don't go over to Iraq and start, causing riots. You couldn't. You'd be hung, drawn and quartered. So, you rioters from all over the country, I'm talking to everybody that may or may not watch this. Keep your protest as a protest, which is basically standing for an argument, standing against something, not throwing bombs and setting bins on fire and turning the streets into a shithole, because that's where you live. That's where we live. You got two choices. You can either trash the place and blame someone else, or not trash the place and keep blaming someone else. I see stories all the time. Oh, look at this! It's just like the streets of Pakistan or India or wherever. There's trash everywhere. There's bags being thrown on the street. They're just trashing the place. They're coming over here, trashing the place. That's what I hear a lot of. Coming over here, they're just trashing the place. Starting this, starting that. Now take a look in the mirror and see what you've caused. Have you contributed to trashing the place? Have you contributed to mob mentality? If so, you know better than they are. Walking right into the hands of, the best way to depopulate is to have the population kill themselves. There's enough of that going on already. There's enough shit in the world going on already. There's enough shit going on in this country already. So why are you adding to it? Anyway. No, I've said this. But then when one person starts, everyone else thinks it's a good idea. And you can't differentiate between the two.
Holding it in a city centre where people are going to be out shopping and people hang around, it's going to happen. Should we do it somewhere else?
You can't do it somewhere else because that's the main hotel in Hull that's housing people, that's housing immigrants. And that's what the protest was for. It was send them back. But like I said before, it's a case of it's being diluted now. I'm 100% behind the protest. Absolutely. Bang on, good for you. But you've got to stay on topic. You've got to stay focused. Mob mentality isn't the way forwards. On that note, I'm going to just say stay safe in this shitty time of turmoil. All right? That's it. I'll see you on a next vid. Stay safe, people.